All right, we are recording and welcome everyone. My name is Mike Gingrich with Live It Well, and this is episode one of Live It Well Conversations with people that I have met on my journey who I feel have a story to tell and a conversation that we can talk about some things in their life, which means that what they have done to live it well. And today, super excited, episode one, to have with me my friend Jillian Vorce. Jillian is a connector and an advisor with more than 25 years of experience as an entrepreneur. Through her portfolio of ventures and services, she works at the intersection of strategy and human connection. Her work focuses on advising founders, leaders, professionals during moments of growth, change, and decision making with relationships as a strategic advantage. She's the founder of One Handshake, of which I am grateful to be a founding member, a curated global community built on the belief that the right relationships can shape what comes next. Welcome, Jillian.
I am so humbled to be here. When we first talked about this, I was, of course, thrilled to be on your show. But now to find out I'm your first guest is like, yeah, exhilarating and also a little bit of pressure. But that's okay. We're just gonna have a conversation and roll with it. But in all seriousness, I'm really truly honored and delighted to be here with you and to have this conversation. So thanks, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, it's wonderful, and it's amazing with technology. I'm sitting here in Quito, Ecuador, and you're coming to me from
Amsterdam, the Netherlands.
there we
Yes.
go. And we can cross big ponds and talk and share conversations. And yeah, I think that it's all about um, you've helped me with kind of reflecting on my life and giving me perspective in our conversations, particularly over the past year and a half or 2 years. That's as I've went through a series of transitions, and I know you've been on those transition journeys yourself. You've done some even ahead of me. Beforehand, you talked about how living it well for you has been shaped by a series of layered transitions rather than a single turning point. So
Hmm.
I don't know if that's a starting point, but yeah, that stood out to me.
Well, it feels like a starting point to me, so let's take it. This is a good exit to take. So, yeah, I think so. First and foremost, now when I think about living it well, I think it's also about like point of reference or context, right? So it's
Hmm.
like at the moment, it's like what we define as well or what feels well to us might change.
Mm.
You
Oh,
know, it's definitely the case. And so for me, it has been this like layering effect, and in some cases removing layers, and also in some cases adding new layers. So I think those two things happening really simultaneously, and I think the shedding of those layers has been a critical component of me and my kind of cascading changes that have undertaken, that have unfolded the last 5+ years. Although it was years prior to that, but on the surface, it's been the last 5 years. I think those layers had to be kind of removed, sometimes painfully, sometimes just naturally. But then as they're removed, I also continued to evolve and new things were added. And so therefore, yeah, exactly. This idea of living it well is so contextual and based, in my opinion, and based on where we're at today. And so things change, perspectives change, and priorities change. Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I think, and in some ways, the whole shedding of layers is has been newer for me in the past couple years because I've done some serious shedding, but I think that it was kind of a light bulb because there was some things about U.S. culture that kind of celebrate a not shed, don't shed, and
Sure.
and so to be comfortable. and say that's a normal part or um, it can be expected and it's okay was something I had to adjust to.
Mm-hmm. That resonates so much. And I'm going to take a step out on a limb here, and I trust that you know me well enough, but in this moment, I'm going to hope and pray and trust that listeners also will give a little grace and space to hear me out when I share this. So I am American, but I've been living in Europe now for 5 years. Matter of fact, today, exactly today, the day we're recording, is my 5 year anniversary. So 5 years ago today, I woke up for the first time and looked out at a new kind of horizon. So, in any case, I am American, but one part of the shedding for me really happened, specifically around the culture and the value system of the United States, happened for me in that first maybe year of living here. And yeah, one thing specifically, and again, this is not to generalize and not to criticize and not to point fingers and any of these things. It's just sharing my personal observation, which is that in the US, I felt so much pressure that it was to just perform. And it was like this idea of like growth at all costs, and everything had to be better, bigger, more, faster, stronger, everything. And one way that that showed up for me is I had built an agency that I had for, I don't know, 10 or 12 years or something. But at the time, I always thought it wasn't good enough. I thought it wasn't, I didn't value it so much because and maybe some of this is my own, like, I need some more therapy on this, or I
Some
could have
stuff,
had therapy at the time. Maybe it's that. However, this, like, to stay on topic here, I was comparing myself and looking at the other agency owners I knew. And at the time, this is like 20, I don't know, 13, 14, 15. I was looking at like HubSpot and what Brian Halligan was building at the time and other digital agencies and whatnot. And I thought, oh, this is just not so good. And I just didn't
mm,
see that there was a space for something that was like, um, for what I was doing, because it didn't
mm,
wasn't, but I didn't really know. Like, I had this thing I was really grateful for. I was really grateful to be able to have a team of 40 people and be able to create business and all of these things, but I didn't yet have the perspective, or I didn't see anybody else or hear anybody else talking about kind of being proud of what we have and valuing what we have. And yeah, I don't know, I mean, I could go off on a tangent about that, but this idea, and then all of a sudden being here in Europe and starting to have conversations and looking back and realizing, wow, what I was building was actually pretty great, and it was like quite valuable and all of these things, but I didn't see that at the time. um yeah, so I didn't anticipate talking about
mm,
this today, but here it is. And so it's maybe not the best example of this shift, but this idea of like, yeah, just continuing to perform. And also it's like, this is the role that I have. This is a personality, or this is the skill that I'm known for. I'm just going to keep driving this. I'm going to just blow out my adrenals and just keep it going, and not ever have any other perspective. And so coming here, it was like, wow, that entire whole belief structure just, ultimately collapsed, because this is very counter to culture here, and beliefs and priorities and
mm.
values and all of that. So yeah, I'll leave it with that. So hopefully it was somewhat
Yeah,
articulate, but kind of catching my drift.
yeah. So, I mean, a takeaway I think is to live it well is to kind of evaluate whether you're just living in a performance culture mindset, and to reflect on that. That's one thing that you
Yeah,
did.
sure.
Yeah.
And also again, what's the priority, or what's the value? Right? And this is part of like this friction, like this, like, layering, peeling, kind of evolving. For me, there's also been a lot of friction. Is And I felt the friction, those years of the agency, of like feeling like I'm supposed to do
Mm,
this thing and
yeah.
keep growing and growing and all of these things. And but yet feeling, it was like, in a way, the further down that path I went, the more friction I felt. and like this kind of like cognitive dissonance. And that for me ended up bringing me to a place where I felt like even though like my numbers were up, like my profitability increased year over year, we kept clients on retainer for like an average of 4 years and all of these things, I felt further away from who I was and what my values were. So it was like, I'm doing the thing, but I am not really enjoying this. This is feeling like less and less about what I want to do in this world. And so eventually it brought me to a crossroads when it was time to shed that pretty big layer, which I'll be honest, it took me a little bit of time to let go of that because it's so hard when I felt like if I let go of this, like, well, two things. Number one, um, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to create something as successful as this again. And even though I didn't think it was super successful, I still had a lot of things going on. And so I had this like kind of fear approach, like if I let this go, is there going to be anything else ever? But then also not knowing what else there could be, what else would it be? And so it was also there was quite a bit of friction in that too. So I think it's about like the value, and then also sometimes the friction that can emerge when your value system doesn't align with the perspective that you're seeing or the environment that you're surrounding yourself with.
Yeah, Mike, and this show, Live It Well, is sponsored by Live It Well, my travel and adventure wellness company based in Quito, Ecuador. We take people on amazing tours of this incredible small country that can get you from the Andes to the Amazon in the same day. Okay, we can go high and explore waterfalls, get you to heights that you've never been to before. We can take you into the Amazon in Ecuador and show you amazing animals, amazing nature and plant life, and all of these things can help you grow, learn, reflect, and come back changed and different. Oh, and did I mention the Galapagos Islands? Yeah, we can take you there as well. So it's time for fresh perspective, time for a wellness infused adventure trip. Let's talk. All right. See ya, and back to the show. Yeah, so that was some pretty big shedding along the
Hmm.
way there too.
Hmm.
Now, timeline wise, was did you kind of shutter the agency prior to going to Amsterdam or after Amsterdam move?
So I began to shed slowly. So I eventually stopped extending contracts with clients. And even like a big turning point was one. So I kept getting like rid of the next largest. And so there was a huge turning point when I had the biggest client at the time, which was a pretty good contract, retainer contract, an annual retainer contract I'd had for like 6 years. And I told them that even if they paid me seven figures a year, that I wouldn't do it anymore. That instead they should reallocate the money they were paying to me and my company to finding somebody to manage their their company because outsourcing leadership was not sustainable for them, and that I just didn't feel right about doing it any longer, and that I would help them to replace me and find, all of these things. And so at the time, I was like, this feels like the right thing to do. But holy shit, am I going to do this? And I did. And then so that process happened as I was actually in Amsterdam, like in that time, in that transition time. So
Okay.
while I was here, it kept going. And then I finally let go of my last client that had been with me for 10 years in October 2023. They had been with me for 10 years. It was like time to have that, it's we should see other people kind of conversation. So yeah,
Okay.
that happened. Yeah, so I brought it over here, not really knowing what I was going to do or what was going to be next. But
Yeah, you had some
yeah,
stirrings and different things going on. Yeah, yeah.
I did. But then I had to figure out the legal framework, the tax situation, all the things. I had a whole system set up in the US, like automated everything, everything paid via Amex, like all like very nice. And so much so it could run without me and did for 3 months when I was on maternity leave. So I had this, system and processes and people and whatnot in place, and then came here and it was like I had to take it apart and try to rebuild it. And so that was painful and took a bit of time. But in that shift, I also started looking for like going back. I mean, at that point, it was like, yeah, it's COVID. I'm a new mom now, moving, I'm in a new country, a new culture, new like everything, and talk about like a free fall. It was like, wow, there's no like landmarks. I don't know anything. Anyway,
You,
um,
yeah.
yeah, it was pretty significant. It was like the fire hose approach, like just go. And I started like really exploring like what are the things that matter to me? What do I really
Mm,
like what matters to me? Like what am I interested in? And then that is like I think in many ways, and it's like feels like the most obvious thing, but moving to Europe really was a catalyst for me in so many ways because of some of the things I've mentioned and a whole host of other reasons aside from the obvious ones. But I started looking more into kind of sustainability, it became really interesting to me, and it's so much more in alignment with the values here and lifestyle and the cultures. And I began to recognize the massive gap between what I know in the US, like the consumer culture in the US and the credit card culture, etc., with how life is here for me. And so I started exploring that and then ended up going to MIT to do a coursework on sustainability for industry, which brought me to B Corps. And so for a while, I was all focused on being a B Corp consultant. And so I did
mm,
my thing. I
hmm.
networked around and met the people, the co-founders who brought B Corp to Europe, actually, and met with them and the executive director and had a lot of conversations, and was just about to roll out a whole package about B Corps. I had a podcast. I had everything. And then I started feeling that same thing. Like it felt to me not quite the right match. It felt like I really love a lot of it, but it felt very kind of exclusive, or it felt really, I started realizing that there's this like echo chamber effect where people that already know about it are in
Okay.
that space
Ah,
and then everybody else. And so I'm like, I want to be able to create bridges, not just work with the people that know it. And so it brought me back to
yeah.
like, great. So this idea of like layering, it was not just like, oh great, here I parachute, I land in Amsterdam, what am I going to do? Oh bang, I think I'll start one handshake, woo, let me do that. It was absolutely not the case. It was like starts and stops, and grinding of some gears, and like trying some things, and like nah, it's like throw the clay back on
Yeah.
the wheel, try it again, like where are we going, where are we going?
Yes.
It's like, meanwhile, it's like the world's changing. We've got tariffs. We've got this. The US is great. The US is not great. It's like so many things. So, anyhow, this brings us to today and here in this moment.
No, beautiful. And yeah, I mean, we've talked previously, you've talked about layers, and I've called it pivots in my own life, and just the need to continue to evolve and pivot. So you kind of go down something and you kind of evaluate that. So
Mm,
is
mm,
that workable? Does that resonate with me? Does that connect and or not? And do I tweak this? So I try it. So it's but learning to try and to try to take steps out, to be willing to fail and to not let that stick to me or
mm,
you know impact what I feel about myself or my identity, but to keep moving has been important for me.
mm-hmm.
And sounds like your layers. You had to kind of evaluate some of that as well, just kind of with letting go of an agency and
Sure.
you know
So
and
many
and
things.
to yeah,
Yeah, and it's
yeah,
also it's not just this like letting go part. It's not just, I mean, yes, there's a big part of it is the internal process to go through to be ready and to let go, and then to actually let go. That's two separate, you get credit for both of those. That's two boxes. But then there's also the rest of the world and how people know you. And,
yes,
so sometimes like once you've done a certain thing, that's how people know you. And at the same time, so you're kind of in a way boxed in by how people once knew you, right? And then
yes,
as you're trying to evolve to the next thing, it's profoundly awkward and can be really uncomfortable when you're out meeting people and they ask you that lovely question, what do you do?
what do
It's
you do?
like, oh wow, I will say fortunately, that question is much less frequent here because they generally don't care what you do. It's not the value system. But still, obviously, in any type of business environment or events or any networking scenario, people are going to want to know what it is that you do. And so I had so many of those conversations, especially in the first, yeah, a couple of years here, where I was like fumbling my way around and yeah, I would show up like, is this event going to be in Dutch or is it going to be in English? And then,
Yeah.
okay, it's in English. Great. I don't know anybody. It was like really humbling because I went from, 20, almost 25 years of business in the US being fed business through my network, like exclusively to then here and not knowing anybody or anything. So in some ways it was great because they didn't know me, they didn't have anything to compare to. But on the flip side, then I had to try to articulate to them what it is I do and like allow that to evolve. And so there's also this like yeah, willingness to not only fail, but to I think in some cases it's equally difficult to be okay and show up in the discomfort of the unknown and just hang with that is
Mm.
really can be tough. And so trying to kind of suss out opportunities to have conversations with people that get that was not always easy. And in fact, is part of kind of the the purpose, the ethos of what One Handshake is. It is, yes, the centerpiece is relationships, but it's not just relationships for the sake of relationships. Um, yes, a lot of them, relationships are like amazing seeds that you plant and they can grow into become things that are beyond what we imagine. But it's also, yeah, it's nice to have other people to be able to talk to about these things and hear from them what their process is and what they're going through and to be able to feel like you can say you're doing this one day and this another day and this and not feel judged by it because other people understand they're also trying to figure out their stuff too.
Yeah, no, I've appreciated that about the community. I think specifically like the openness and it's a community where other people are kind of reflecting on their layers and they're comfortable. We've the space has been we've had some good conversations, so it's been
Yep.
unlike anything that I've ever been a part of. It's not that I don't resonate with those ones where it's like, okay, what do you do? What do you do? Okay,
Yeah.
well, let me see if I can get you a lead here and see if I can connect you there so you can get business, that type of thing.
Yep.
Where we're, within One Handshake, we're open to that, but we're also it's deeper. It's like, and I haven't met other than you. You're the only person I've met in real life in the group in One
Yeah, that's it's
Handshake.
that's something. Yeah.
But
But yeah, it's
I I resonate with them.
yeah.
I have connection.
And so far, remember this. The plan is we're going on a one handshake field trip to Ecuador.
Come,
So
come.
just stay tuned. You will be meeting others at the first annual One Handshake field trip. Date to be
Here we go.
determined, but we will
All
have
right.
that. And I feel the same because some I haven't met everybody in person either. And also the referrals that have come in, I also haven't met them in person. So, um, yeah, I think it's interesting.
So I want to dive into that a little bit deeper, like the Dutch culture,
Hmm.
and because there's a core group within in the One Handshake that's the Dutch culture, and for
Hmm.
me here in Ecuador, I've been doing kind of wellness retreats and kind of pivoting as I've talked about,
Hmm.
into adventure tours, so my own style that resonates with me. But you know what? One of my most responsive audiences is Dutch.
That's really interesting.
So
That's
so there's
really
been some
interesting.
kind of
Hmm.
yeah, like because I feel in US culture I feel some kind of I don't know unique or different, and Americans kind of struggle with that. I got a week's vacation, that's it. Where
True.
in Dutch, they're like,
And
hey,
Europe,
I'm
yeah.
planning on taking a month here in the fall, like early, and so maybe we
Mm,
could do 2 weeks, 3 weeks in Ecuador, kind of thing,
mm,
and but they've resonated with my style or kind
Hmm.
of this wellness, adventure, outdoors, nature mix. So
Hmm.
maybe
Hmm.
and you've been immersed in the culture there. So
Mm-hmm.
do you have any things that you kind of resonate and say, yeah, I've noticed this is different and this feels good, or this is kind of the way the culture operates?
Oh my gosh, so many things, but let me share two quick things that come to mind for me.
Okay.
So, as you were describing some of the reasons why, or what you're kind of learning about the kind of Dutch culture, so when you're talking about, yeah, in the US, a lot of people have either no vacation or 1 or 2 weeks vacation, and it's very much like that. And in Europe, you said many people, well, in several countries they take the summers off actually. So as you were talking about that, I thought, Spain, that's like a great market. But then I was like, wait a minute, wait. Spain has something that the Netherlands doesn't have. It's called the sun. And so specifically, if you look at like European countries that do also have more liberal holiday structures, I suppose,
Okay.
where people have, 4+ weeks of vacation time, that also don't have sun or a lot of warm weather. That'll be
Okay.
that combination is like straight up that. But other pieces here, one of the challenging, it's gonna sound like a luxury thing, but it's, yeah, a lot of us who have lived in different places recognize that the Netherlands is extremely flat. So there's not a lot of variety in the landscape, if you will.
Okay. Okay.
It's beautiful, but that's really like the architectures and the canals and whatnot, and the
Yeah.
parks. But there's not a lot of like really good, like hiking or anything. Like all the outdoors kind of related stuff, people go outside of the Netherlands
Okay.
mostly.
Okay.
So I think
Yeah.
you're offering sunshine and
Hmm.
volcanoes and hiking and like the whole thing. So I mean,
Yeah.
this is like, it
and
makes
and and
sense
they've
to me.
gotten used to that. It somehow, that's kind of a natural part. I need to go somewhere to get some of that, or and
Yeah.
so that's
Mm-hmm.
part of their mindset. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the adventure part also, from what I can see, what I know, not an expert in Dutch culture, of course, but from what I can see, I think that also resonates. The adventure, that kind of angle on it is really interesting. I think in general, it's a very highly educated culture, society here. So I
Okay.
think people will have an interest in also like the adventure, but also learning more about
Yeah.
kind of life there or certain things. So there's like an interplay of those two things. So, and the not to say they're going there for an academic sunshine fest, but if there's things that they can learn to help anchor it, I feel like that would make it extra juicy.
All right. All right. That's
Yeah,
yeah, that's just very interesting. And wow, a half hour goes quickly,
it does go
Jillian here.
quickly. Yeah,
Amazing. And I feel like we could keep going. But I try to keep these
yeah,
bite
sure.
sizable, I think, in that time period. So um, as we would kind of wind down and you think about what it means for you to live it well now and what you would want to pass on to others to help them just to reflect anything that from your journey or just thoughts of saying, this has been important to me and I encourage others to, yeah, reflect on this in terms of live it well.
Yeah, so I think one of the first things that came to mind was this hurdle for me about self-judgment.
Yeah.
And so if that is something that folks can identify with, to find a resource to help unlock that. It's, yeah, whether it's a community, a therapist, or a advisor, yeah, somebody that you can talk to help sort that through. That can be a really big one. But the other thing is, I mean, I have experienced that, yeah, life can unfold in ways far deeper, better, more enriching than we ever thought possible, right? So I never in a
Yeah.
million years thought my life would be what it is today. So it can be scary to not know what's on the other side. But it's like we can sometimes have a tendency to be fearful about what we are losing or what we might not get. but we can also convert that to like curiosity and imagining what could become and having, kind of putting our energy there. And then the last thing I would say is, yeah, relationships. I mean, that's for me, that's like my body of work, the what I'm most proud of. The best thing I've done with my career in my life is build lots of relationships with so many people because of who they are, not what they do. And so when you're going through this idea of trying to find out what living it well for you means, it is very helpful to also reflect with people that are maybe outside of your circle, because most of us spend most of our time with people who are mostly like us. So it can be really hard to identify what really well means to us when so much kind of same can be reflected back at us. So kind of getting out, at least sticking your head out from that fishbowl here and there where possible can give so much perspective that can really start to kind of tip the scale, if you will. So,
There you go. There you go.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And
yeah,
it doesn't necessarily take moving to another culture as we have, but it does help to at times get out of your culture for a period of time and to be able to uh, kind of watch the lives of someone else in another culture.
sure. I mean, perspective is can be invaluable. I mean, that's why to
Yeah.
me, relationships are everything, but it's not just relationships. A byproduct of those is the perspectives that they can provide. And I think that that's really where it's at. Because sometimes other people can, especially people that don't know us for our whole lives, they can get a perspective of us that we don't yet have. And that
Yep.
can be like, yeah, that can be very tantalizing. So, yeah,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Episode one, Jillian Vorce. Thank you.
It's a wrap.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
being
so much,
here.
Mike. Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. We will continue to connect on the interwebs, and I look forward to more conversations.
All right, over and out.
Over and out.